It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I dig it. I like it. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live across the entire Mid-America Network out of the heartland of America. Right here on the Big Talker, KQAM, simulcasting on KGPT TV, and across the entire Mid-America Network on 4 talk stations across the 5-state region. Welcome in. It's great to have you along today. It is a Tuesday, our hashtag Patriotic Tuesday, the way we roll every single week, as we so much love to do. Your thoughts and calls, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We have the Facebook Live feed up and rolling, baby. You can leave me a message, say good morning, call me a jerk, just like it, share it, leave it on your page, whatever you want to do. Let's blow this up. Let's make it a good one. Let's have a little fun. We have a lot to get to today. At the bottom of the hour, we're going to play our interview that we had yesterday with Alan Cobb. He is the president of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, talking about tax rates, talking about government spending, talking about the educational bill, and economic growth in the state of Kansas. So we'll do that at the bottom of the hour, and then we'll get to some of the guests a little bit later in the show as well. I do have to ask you, though, if you miss, 3 weeks, if you miss a month, if you miss 2 months, if you miss 4 months of work, you just don't show up. Maybe you call in to do a couple of things because you kind of have to. Maybe you kind of try and guide a few people to actually do some things, but you're really just off like 4 months in a row. And you're just, you know what? I'm just not feeling well. I'm sick. I can't do it. I got to go home. How long would you keep that job? How long would you actually have that job? Probably not for very long, I'm guessing. If I just didn't show up for 4 months and everybody had to continuously try and find guest hosts for the radio show, and they had to do all the show prep, and they had to do all the production, and they had to do all the operational duties that I do at the station, and they just had to continue for 4 months in a row, and I just didn't show up. Now, it wasn't excused. It was kind of excused, maybe. Maybe I had an excuse for a while, but that was only temporary. But would a business really keep you in that position unless there was a legit reason? John McCain has not been in Washington, D.C. since the beginning of December. Now, I know that he's got brain cancer. I know that he's going through medical issues. I know that everybody's concerned about him, and we send our thoughts and prayers to John McCain. But this is even more. This isn't even just a regular job where you just don't show up. This is the U.S. Senate. The Senate of the United States, and we have a senator in a very close margin of a Senate seat already. It's the majority of Republicans in the Senate, very, very close. We're within really 2-3 points. And we have a senator that has not shown up to cast a vote on any issue since the beginning of December. Now, I saw the story of him where he is stable after undergoing surgery over the last day or two, and he's on the uptrend, and he's stable, and everybody's announcing that, and everybody's all happy about it, how he's going to be doing better. But the fact is, he has not been to Washington, D.C. since the beginning of December. December 7th was the last vote, actually, that he was part of. Now, they do say that he was admitted into the Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, Arizona, underwent surgery to treat an intestinal infection related to some kind of sickness that he ended up getting. Now, over the last few months, he's been participating in physical therapy in his home in Cornville, Arizona, as he recovers from the side effects from the cancer treatment. They say that he's engaged in his work as chairman of the Senate and Armed Services Committee and has enjoyed frequent visits from his family, friends, and staff at the Senate colleagues. So they're flying out to Arizona to come visit him. He's been in the hospital for these treatments, and he may be partaking in the duties of the chair of the Senate Armed Services Committee, but he has still not shown up in Washington, D.C. This, to me, is different than any other job that anybody could have. If you don't show up to work, if I don't show up here because I'm gone for the next 4 months and I'm sick, maybe I could have an excuse and they would keep me on and I could be able to come back when I'm done. Maybe. Or they'll say, hey, you know what? It's too much of a worry. We're just going to hire somebody else and be able to fill in and do the job. That's probably what would happen after a while, after 4 or 5, 6 months of this. To where if you're not going to be reliable, you're just not going to be there. He is representing the entire state of Arizona. There are 2 senators. As you know, every state's got 2 senators. He's representing the entire state of Arizona, and we don't think it's a big deal, the fact that he hasn't shown up to so many of the votes. Now, I'm not attacking him personally. I am attacking in the sense that we need representation. We need to have people on the job, doing the job, casting the votes, being part of the conversation, being part of the debates. And if you're not able to do that, then spend your time focusing on getting well, getting better, going home, and let us elect somebody new to represent us and be able to do that job. If you're not able to do the job, then it's not worth you being in the position doing. And right now, regardless of what John McCain's politics are, I don't really care. It's nothing against any of that. But if you're not going to support, if you're not going to go up and support your constituents and support the elected people who put you into office, then it's not worth you being there. It's very simple. And the fact that he hasn't resigned, the fact that he's stayed in that position, he hasn't bowed out and said, you know what, I'm done. You guys and gals and everybody else in Arizona, you elected me. I appreciate it, but I'm going to be off. I'm going to do my own thing now. I'm going to go take care of myself. Elect somebody else so they can actually do the job. The fact that he hasn't done that shows the selfishness of who John McCain actually is. And I'm sorry to say it. He wants that position. He's been there forever. He doesn't know what else to do with his life. It's time for him to retire. He's undergoing surgery left and right. The last vote that he voted on was December 7, 2017, a Resolution 123 making further continuing appropriations for fiscal year 2018. That was the last one, and he voted no for it. He didn't vote on the government shutdowns at the beginning of the year. Didn't vote on any of the Trump nominees since the beginning of the year. Hasn't voted on the continuing resolutions, hasn't voted on the omnibus bill, hasn't voted on nothing, anything, not at all, zilch, other than making a few phone calls and heading up the chairmanship of the Senate Armed Services Committee. This, ladies and gentlemen, is why we're frustrated with the political system. We have individuals there that are there for their own personal advantage, their own personal accord, and they actually do not have the constituents in mind for their better interests. They don't. Or else John McCain would have bowed out a long time ago. So there's my bit. We pray for John McCain for his speedy recovery, and hopefully he can get better soon. But at the same time, get the hell out of the seat and let us get somebody in that can actually do the job. I'm not going to hire somebody. If you own a business, you're not going to hire somebody that says, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I really want this job, but I don't know I don't know the product. I don't know how to do it. And oh, by the way, I'm going to be gone 6 months out of the year. Can you get that covered for me? Are you really going to hire them? And you would think as a government entity, as a public entity, as someone that you vote on, that you would want that type of representation. I'm sure, I hope at least, the people in Arizona are absolutely furious of the fact that they're not being represented appropriately. 316-721-8255. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh on John McCain, but I would be really upset if, say, Senator Jerry Moran or Pat Roberts were not in Washington, D.C., and even though we may even disagree on a lot of the politics that they do, the fact that they're not there, they're not fighting, they're not doing what they need to do, then they come back and say, oh, yeah, we're going to head up the agricultural bills in Washington, D.C., in the Farm Bill, but we're not going to show up. We're actually going to do it from here and call in a couple of times, and then we're not going to go and vote on anything. The fact that John McCain, it boggles the mind how Arizona hasn't risen up and said, you're out, let's get somebody else. Because I don't know when he's going to go back. I don't know if he's going to go back. And if that happened here, I know for damn sure that I'd be starting a petition going around trying to get them removed from office and getting somebody else elected in to that position. 316-721-8255. I hope that if, speaking of jobs, I hope that you wash your hands thoroughly before you actually go to do a job interview, as the latest study, studyfinds.com, that 1 in 8 people have cocaine on their hands, even if they're drug-free. Oh, yes. According to the latest study, 1 in every 8 people are walking around with traces of cocaine on their hands, and there's a good chance that they have no idea where it came from. Researchers from the University of Surrey in the UK recently tested the fingerprints of 65 volunteers, 50 of whom reported not using any type of drug in any way, shape, or form to determine whether regular citizens could mistakenly be tested positive for drugs. Perhaps so. 13% of participants who self-reported being clean had traces of cocaine on their fingertips, while another 1% had minute levels, about one metalobite, if I can speak today, of heroin, according to the researchers. Cocaine is a very common environmental contaminant, according to the research. It's well known that it's present on many bank notes. Even so, we're surprised that it was detected in so many of our fingerprint samples. Now, you don't usually get tested by your fingerprints when it comes to your drug test for your job interview. However, they say that is the new technology because it is a little bit more accurate. Instead of doing the blood or the urine sample for the drug test, they will be testing your fingers and your fingerprints on what goodies that you've been touching, and you could be tested for a false positive for the cocaine. So if you are starting your job interview today, be very wary, be very careful, and make sure to wash your hands because you may have those traces of cocaine on your finger. I had no idea, and I thought you would think that with cocaine being illegal that it would be very difficult to get your hands on, or at least have on your hands. But yet, there it is. Good golly. Lots to get to today. It's going to be a fun day today. Your thoughts and calls as well. We're going to shift gears a little bit to some more important issues, but I had to get that off my chest a little bit this morning. Your thoughts and calls as well. Always appreciated. It is a Patriotic Tuesday. Let's say we have a good one today. What do you say?
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Hey, welcome into it. 23 minutes past the hour. It's great to have you along today. It is a Tuesday, hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Let's have a little fun today. What do you say? I'm down for it. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. There was a gun rally, a Second Amendment rally in Topeka over the weekend last week on Saturday by the National Constitutional Coalition of Patriotic Americans. They did a rally across the entire nation, one of them being in Topeka. A few hundred individuals showed up supporting their Second Amendment rights, which is kind of important. This has been a crazy year when it came to legislation, and it started off as somewhat decent legislation, then turned out to be not so decent legislation, and they just took advantage of whenever something came onto the floors in either chamber, and there we had it. Poof! There was all of a sudden a debate about guns and being able to repeal carry on campus and being able to lower the age of purchasing, which I agree with, but then using that as an excuse to be able to register the firearms and yada, 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 and just went down the tube, and it wasn't worth it. Sometimes when you take too much junk onto it, you can still ruin good legislation. Hundreds gathered at the bottom of the steps of Capitol at the Capitol for the pro-Second Amendment rally. Today we're coming out, we're supporting our rights to bear arms, and it's a very critical thing to do, because this nation was founded on that. We, my friends, are going to be having another Second Amendment, pro-Second Amendment rally on Friday this week. You're not going to want to miss this. It's going to be huge. It's going to be fantastic. Just about all of the gubernatorial candidates are going to be there speaking. I just heard that we confirmed Susan Weigel, Senate President, to be there talking about legislation that's been voted on for this year, and it's going to be a heck of a rally. It's going to be on Friday at 10 a.m. I'm going to be broadcasting the show on Friday live from Topeka at from 6 to 9, the usual show. It'll be up there in Topeka, and then directly afterwards, I'll be hosting and emceeing the rally hosted by the Kansas State Rifle Association. They're getting ready for their annual meeting, but they're going to be doing a rally on Friday at 10 o'clock at the Capitol, and I'm going to be hosting that. So excited about this. Show up in mass numbers. Mass numbers, baby. Let's show them that the Second Amendment can still be protected and that we still care about that in the state of Kansas. It's going to be at 10 o'clock at the Capitol and right at the Capitol grounds. Now, directly after that, then I head up to Lenexa, Kansas, up near Kansas City, and we'll be broadcasting up there throughout Friday and Saturday, giving updates from up there on the Second Amendment in the Kansas State Rifle Association's annual meeting. They'll have some speakers and some vendors and exhibitors. They'll be having the annual shootout for the benefit on Saturday morning. I'll cover all of that both on the KQAM Facebook page along with on air as well. So stay tuned in. You're not going to want to miss it, and we appreciate all of our sponsors: the Kansas State Rifle Association, Jimmy's Egg, Augusta Flight Center, JD Aviation, Phil's Coins, Rob's Gun Tech and Firearms, MJ's Check Repair and Moundridge, and AutoSmart. Thanks again to all those guys partnering up with us and allowing us to be able to cover this event on Friday and Saturday. I'm really, really excited about this. So if you can't make it up for the entire meeting, it's $35 for tickets if you want to go to the annual meeting in Lenexa. And you can get more information on that at ksraweb.org, ksraweb.org. $35 ticket. You can go there. You can get the entire event starting at 1 o'clock on Friday, all the way through the dinner Friday night, and then, of course, the Saturday morning shootout and everything that entails with that. You can go to all that, but if you want to just go to the rally, I know it's a Friday. I know you may be working. It's very difficult sometimes to be able to get off and actually go to these because, we actually work. But if you get an opportunity, go up to the Capitol, go up to Topeka, and let's support the Second Amendment on Friday. I'll be up there again, hosting the show and then being able to host and MC the rally. The funny part about all of this is that it's on 420. It is on Friday, 420, which of course is Pot Day, and all the advocates for the marijuana will be out there trying to rally and protest as well. So trying to rally to legalize marijuana. So I'm wondering how many of them may show up to the wrong rally, may show up to the wrong one because they're not quite sure which one they're at, because they may be altered mentally in their state of mind when it comes to Friday morning. So we'll have to see, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate, again, the opportunity to be able to host and MC this rally from the Kansas State Rifle Association. Last I had heard, again, the confirmed guest speakers are going to be Chris Kobach, Ken Seltzer, and Susan Weigel, along with a few others. So stay tuned in for that. We'll have more information as the week progresses. But I am excited and looking forward to the Kansas State Rifle Association's annual meeting. When we come back after the bottom of the hour, we're going to play our interview with Alan Cobby as the Kansas State Chamber of Commerce president, and we'll talk with him some of the tax increases, potentially government spending, and what we get to look forward to in the state of Kansas over the next few months at the end of the session and going into the election year. So we'll play that interview we did yesterday with him. Also, as you know, Governor Colyer is excited about signing the educational bill of $40 million, and he's going to be doing that signing apparently today. He's going to be signing that bill at a school and then doing a tour around to some of the schools in the state of Kansas, talking about educational funding and being able to fix some of the educational system. So we will discuss that a little bit later as well and get your thoughts on that. It is, we've talked about it many times before. I don't need to bring it up again, but how are we going to pay for it? Who knows? What if? There's a story in the Topeka Capital Journal that mentioned that how the Republicans have no idea how to pay for their bill for educational funding. Well, surprise, surprise, right? You don't buy a car when you're trying to set your budget and then look around and say, okay, now we need to start budgeting our bills and figuring out how to pay our bills because we just purchased a brand new car and we didn't know what our bills actually look like prior to. You don't do that. But what do? Let's just spend some more money. Why not, right? Bottom of the hour news coming up. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Defending the rights of every Kansan.
I'm not being aggressive, I'm being dominant.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Making it happen today on a Tuesday. Welcome back in. Good morning to you. It's great to have you along today. Better than a cup of coffee, a shot of espresso, even an energy drink to get you started for the day. I'm having a bit of a rough one this morning. I really am. I feel like I'm struggling a little bit today. I don't know what's going on. I didn't sleep well, which I'll talk about in a little bit later. But last night, for the first time in a long time, we ended up going and going to the Y and working out a little bit, and I am sore beyond belief today. It's been a few weeks really since we've done that, and I hurt really badly. And then some sleeping issues, which we may talk about a little bit later in the show. Welcome in 316, but nonetheless, I'm here. I'm excited. It's going to be a really great day. We have some great stuff to talk about today, and I am excited about that. I want your thoughts and calls, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, I want to shift gears a little bit and play our interview with Alan Cobb. He is the president for the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, as we talked with him yesterday on the program, and a lot of big news coming out of Topeka on what's going to happen with economic development, what's going to happen with the economy, with spending, with tax rates, and so on and so forth. So I want to play that interview. This is Alan Cobb yesterday, president of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, right here on The Voice of Reason. President of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Alan Cobb, back with us. Alan, what's happening, my friend?
Enjoying life. How about you?
Oh, man, we're living the dream. I appreciate you coming on. It's been a little bit since we chatted.
It has been. I can't even remember. Maybe it was in January.
Yeah, January, right before the session, I think, was when we talked about it. And really, what we had talked about then is, it's kind of funny because we're really talking about the same thing here. The one big issue, the one big agenda that we are focused on in the state legislature is, of course, the educational finance. I mean, other than that, waiting for the research and now writing the legislation, have we really done anything of substance the rest of this session?
Well, we have. Now, there's a lot of it will be finalized in the veto session. Things got kind of hung up at the late, but I know from a chamber's perspective, there's some stuff that's going to sound very boring, but some asbestos liability reform, some other courtroom liability reform, legal reform. We made some progress on expensing for small businesses being able to expense their capital investments as opposed to just having to depreciate those over time. And we have a regulatory reform bill that should get passed that essentially the shortcut would be it gives the legislative branch a veto rights or involvement, some stake in the game for executive branch regulations. And so I think that's a good thing, whether you have a Democrat, Republican president, doesn't matter, whether you have a good governor or bad governor, you got at least the legislature will have some involvement in the reg process. Because what happens is the legislature passes a broad law that allows the executive branch to promulgate rules and regs. And frequently, those rules and regs at the federal or state level won't exactly follow the intent of the legislature. And can be a difficult process to go back and redo some of those regs. So this is something that Scott Walker did in Wisconsin, had bipartisan support in the House, 90 votes in the House, and we should be able to. So we have some of those progress. Are those things signed yet? No, but I'm pretty sure they will be. So a few things. It's just been kind of dominated by the delay, the slowdown of everybody sitting around and waiting on what the Supreme Court may or may not do, what the school studies may or may not say, et cetera.
Sure. Well, let's talk a little bit about that. First off, your thoughts on the study that came out? We spent, what was it, $200+ million on a study to be able to look and see the adequacy of where we're at right now. It came back with what I had heard of from some different legislators about different faulty numbers that were in the study, about saying that with the current spending level we're at, we should have close to like a 92-93% graduation rate. But then on the other side, turned around and said, yeah, but you really need to increase your spending by close to $2 billion.
Well, I think the accuracy, there were some numbers transposed, some basic stuff that looks like they were literally Excel spreadsheet problems. Well, then that doesn't exactly give you confidence in the entire study. But as I said, look, studies are important. It's good for folks to go in and take a hard look and provide some detail, maybe some objectivity that doesn't always happen with the traditional aspect of schools or legislators, but it's just one more thing. It's not definitive. I mean, I don't think we want to start legislating by consultant, which is essentially what some folks who support verbatim what the study says is the legislature should just enact what they said. Well, that's silly. And it's, again, another piece of information the legislature should take into account and look at the veracity, or not the veracity, it wasn't untruthful, but look at the details, the assumptions they made. 95% graduation rates is I think 3 or 4 points higher than anything in the country. And also maybe that's a good goal, maybe it's not. That should be by the purview of the State Board of Education and the legislature, not the Supreme Court, which essentially mandated the study, and then it certainly shouldn't be up to the consultants. So that's a fairly I'm surprised more people aren't talking about it. Is to my knowledge, that was not the direction they were given. Is figure out how we can fund 95% graduation rates. And
Right.
so I think there's a lot of flaws in our process, but sure, take a look at it, see what we can get out of it. And but let's be judicious about spending $250,000 on studies would be my lesson out of it.
Well, that's very true. Now that we have this come out, now the proposed bill is close to what, $540 million, and now they're looking at the $80 million error of what's going to be included immediately into that. I supported the state Senate, and Susan Weigel when she came out and said that we're not going to even address this until we look at a constitutional amendment. Then they shifted their decision on that a little bit. Your thoughts on what should be the priority first? Should it be the educational finance bill, or should it be addressing the constitutional amendment before we even look at the finance bill?
Well, ideally, it would be the constitutional amendment, but if that's not where the votes are, that's not where the votes are. We have to be, I guess, practical or pragmatic where the actual votes are, and also what motivates folks. I think some of the maybe the desires about kind of forcing some folks' hands, twisting arms in the constitutional amendment. Certainly understand that and done some of that myself, but it seems not to have worked, which is not a problem. Then you change strategy and you move forward. But again, part of the problem, of course, is that what's driving all of this is a Supreme Court, a non-elected branch of government, forcing these spending decisions. And it's so silly when folks say, well, they're not appropriating money. Yeah, they are. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing, and they're forcing this discussion on the legislature. And we wouldn't be having it but for the Supreme Court. So I think, but we do have the Supreme Court ruling. Who knows what will the Supreme Court will accept? Would they have accepted the Senate version? Who knows? Will they accept the House version? Who knows? My point is we shouldn't have to be asking ourselves these questions. We shouldn't have to wonder what the Supreme Court will accept on funding levels or not. It's a problem.
Realistically, with the makeup of our state legislature right now, do you think that we can actually get a constitutional amendment done this year? Or obviously we need to focus on the elections in November as well, but do you think that with the makeup that they will be able to pass a constitutional amendment and get it signed before the end of the session?
I think it's possible. I mean, it's a steep climb. Partly depends on what the Supreme Court does. Different political analysis say it'll help the constitutional amendment if the Supreme Court accepts the school finance package, or if they reject it. The other kind of wonkish thing is, do they accept the finance package but then retain jurisdiction, essentially meaning we're over for now, but we're going to keep an eye on you, which is, I think, demonstrative of the problem that we shouldn't have the Supreme Court ruling over the 15 words in the Constitution about the states to make suitable provision for the financing of education. We've had 35, 40 years of litigation based on those 15 years, and it defies common sense.
Right. No, absolutely. We're talking with Alan Cobb, president of Kansas Chamber of Commerce. Let's shift gears a little bit to the actual economy of the state of Kansas. We've seen 10 months in a row now to where the media is all hyped up and excited and giddy. The fact that we've had revenues above projections month over month for 10 months straight now. The Democrats, of course, saying that it's because of the tax increases they did. Some Republicans saying it's because of the Trump tax cuts that we did and the just the growth of the economy nationally that we're starting to get the effects of. What's your thoughts on the economy? Or is it just the fact that maybe we haven't altered the formula for projections on our monthly revenues for the state, and maybe we're not seeing the economy grow quite as we need to yet?
I think it's all of those. I don't know. I'm not an expert on the format in which the estimating crew does their estimating. They clearly have gotten a little more conservative because that's part of the political dynamic of the Brownback tax cuts. Well, it wasn't necessarily the dollars that came in, but it was that they kept missing the estimates, which is a whole another part of it. But I think the economy that's grown nationwide, I mean, ultimately we're one of 50 states in the U.S., so we do go up and down with the U.S. economy. I think, of course, tax increases are going to increase tax revenue. I mean, maybe not as much as they thought. But Kansas generally remains a slow growth state, and I think that's something that the private sector is concerned with, and everybody should be concerned with. The rising tide does lift all boats, maybe not always equally, and let's take a hard look about how we do that. But Kansas' slow economic growth state has been for decades. It wasn't just it's over Democratic governors, Republican governors, moderates, conservatives, whatever. And I don't know that we've taken a real hard look at what's driving the economy and what the state could change on the policy side since the mid '80s in any comprehensive way.
Sure.
And I will give Governor Brownback credit. He was the first governor I'm recalling that specifically was discussing what do we need to do to increase our rates of economic growth. And we did have a couple of years during the Brownback terms where our per capita income was above the national average. Usually we're below. We're right at close to the national average now, but there are some signs that are mixed about the Kansas economy. So we'll see. I think it's too early to make a whole lot of conclusions. But of course, tax increases increase taxes.
Oh, exactly.
Well, that also means money out of the taxpayers' pockets. And the question is the government spending it in the appropriate way better than the private sector?
Oh, and that's what it is. And I'm concerned about the fact that they hype it up and say, oh, look at this. We increased the taxes and therefore the economy raised and everybody's paying more taxes and we're doing great and we're doing so let's go ahead and let's start raising more taxes and a little bit again. And my concern is that the end of this year, they're going to try and squeak through to say that whatever they sign for education or any other spending is going to be done through the growth of the economy and we don't have to raise taxes. After the election, by January next year for the new session, they're going to say, oh, look, we're running into more shortfalls. Guess what? We get to see some more property tax increases or income tax increases or business tax increases or whatever they find because look at that. It helped the economy last time. Let's do it again.
Yeah, I think that's a fair concern. And I think the other element of all this, of course, is the spending part. And partly because of the Supreme Court decision hovering over all the decision making, legislature has not done as much as they could on the spending side. It is hard. I mean, the legislature's part-time. You got a $16 billion all-funds budget. You have 90 days. How do you really start looking at the efficacy of some of the spending? Some of that certainly falls to the executive branch. And that's another part we don't talk about, is are we spending money in the appropriate ways? Are there things we could rationalize? We could get some efficiencies. And in my opinion, we don't have those kind of substantive conversations either.
There it is, Alan Cobb, president of the Kansas Chamber of Commerce. Appreciate him joining the show. We always love chatting with him. We'll take a break, wrap up hour number one. We got some phone calls on the line when we come back. We'll take those. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
3606.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, wrapping up hour number one. It goes by way too fast, but we love having you here. What's up? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Governor Jeff Colyer held the first Education Council meeting yesterday as he's signing the educational bill today. At a later time, we'll have more information on that in just a bit. But first, it's time for Rick with the news.
Boom. It's
the humanity!
ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
Hey, good morning, Andy. Good morning, everyone. Prosecutors and defense attorneys making their closing arguments this week to jurors, deciding the fate of three men accused of plotting to bomb an apartment complex in Garden City, housing Somali immigrants. The jury trial of Patrick Stein, Gavin Wright, and Curtis Allen returns to the courtroom today to get their final instructions and to hear arguments before getting the case for deliberation. Kansas wheat crop just not getting a break this year. The National Ag Statistics Service reported yesterday in its weekly update that 46% of the wheat in the state is rated as poor or very poor, another 42% in fair shape, while 11% statewide is good, only 1% rated in excellent condition. About 22% of the state's wheat has now jointed, well behind the 51% that's average for this time of year. And corn planting in Kansas, only 6% complete. A semi carrying cases of Keystone Light tipped over and spilled all of the cans onto the embankment.
Heartbreaking.
Hold my beer and watch this. The ramp from K96 to Kellogg in Wichita was closed for a period of time over the weekend while crews cleaned up the mess. Crews say the rollover happened around noontime Sunday. Police say the semi was going a little too fast.
Whoopsies.
And slid down the embankment. The crash caused a loss of beer, but thankfully the driver suffered only minor injuries.
The only kind of beer that I won't drink.
Keystone Light?
The one and only beer that I won't drink. And, you know, the only reason I won't, I don't know if it's because of the taste of or when I was in college, allegedly under the age of when I was supposed to be allowed to drink, and I ended up getting some, and my buddy bought it for me. I got the case, but it was 3 months expired.
Well, that would probably contribute.
That would probably get you. So I don't know if that's the regular taste of Keystone or if that's just, because it was a 3 months expired kind of thing. But that's the one. That's the only one that's never appeased me.
I think that would be called Keystone Skunky.
Yeah. Hey, being the news guy.
Being
the not necessarily the political guy or the biased. I don't know. You think of things a little more objectively at times. Sometimes
I do my best.
2 nights in a row now, I have not slept well. 2 nights in a row at 3 a.m. on the dot. I'm going to sound crazy here. I swear this is happening. A toy of Isla's has gone off in the middle of the night, 3 a.m. on the dot, and it goes for 20 minutes and stops.
Same toy?
Same toy.
Take out the batteries.
We did.
And it kept going off.
And
now, is this the last 2 nights?
2 nights in a row. 2 nights in a row.
I know what it is.
What? At 3 a.m. It doesn't go off the rest of the day. It doesn't go off the rest of the night. At 3 a.m.
You, my friend, were always, even out in Garden City, were always a very loyal follower of Art Bell. And this is Art Bell reaching out to you from the other side.
Yeah.
There you go.
I don't know. Last night, the night before, it went off at 3:45.
This isn't a Chucky doll, is it?
No, it's weird. It's one of those like little kitchen sets. That's with all the plates and
the Easy
stuff.
Bake Oven alarm is going off.
That's no, it's the little stove thing. Like you put the little pot on the stove and it sounds like it's bubbling and boiling and it lights up and it's in the room right next to our bedroom.
How does it do that?
But you put the little pot on there and then it lights up in a bubble sort of thing. 2 nights in a row. 2 nights ago at 3:45 it went off. Last night at 2:55 it went off. And it goes for about 5 minutes and it stops, and 10 minutes later it goes off again. And it did that for a half an hour. Could not sleep.
You have like a multi-level house, right?
Yeah, and we're going to take that sucker out in the garage. I don't know. I didn't know if it was just, but it doesn't do it the rest of the day. Doesn't do it the rest of the night.
It's Art
2
Bell.
nights in a row
Art
now.
Bell is cooking on your daughter's toy stove.
Apparently.
Making his midnight snack.
It's waking me up an hour early, and I'm already not happy about that.
What time do you get up?
I get up way too early.
What time do you get up?
My alarm goes off at 4 o'clock.
All right.
Then
you're on track.
Except for the last couple nights when I wake up at 3 o'clock because the stupid toy goes off. Wrap it up. Hour number 2 coming up right around the corner. Got some calls in line. I promise we'll get to you. We'll start off hour number 2 with your phone calls. Stay there. This is The Voice of Reason. Having a little fun today. This is your show as always. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. What's happening? Simulcasting on KGPT TV, channel 2610. It's great to have you along today, whether you're listening, watching, it does not matter. Welcome in. Good morning to you. It is a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday, and we're having more fun than what we should be allowed to do on a Tuesday. Welcome in. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, we have the Facebook Live feed up and rolling as well. You can leave a comment, ask a question, call me a jerk, say good morning. I don't really care. Like it, share it onto your own page. I also have, and I want you to check it out, it is well, not yet. I'm not going to say. It's almost done. It is almost in. We're getting very, very close, but the KQAM website is going to be up and rolling here very soon. You're going to be able to check out promotions that we're working on, different things you can do, we'll have the Voice of Reason page where you can have the show list for all the guests, and you can have the podcasts on there. It's going to be really, really cool. So stay tuned in for that. I've never built a website before, but I am... and I didn't actually build it. I had to have someone else build it, but then I'm trying to fill in all the gaps and fill in all the details of it. And I've never done this before, so it's a brand new learning curve for me, but I've been working on it. It's going to be up in a few days officially with everything on there, so stay tuned in. KQAM Radio is the website, kqamradio.com. Check it out a little bit later, but you can see it. It's just not complete yet. But I am very excited about that. We will have a lot more information coming up on that very, very soon. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, we will have our usual, it's a Tuesday, our city update, with Wichita City Councilman Brian Fry. He'll be joining us here in studio for a little bit. And then in the 8 o'clock hour, an hour from now, Professor Ben Teitelbaum. We've had him on the show before. He is the Nordic Studies professor at the University of Colorado in Boulder. Yes, the Boulder campus. The extreme fringe left campus in Colorado, but he is a great guy. He's a great professor. We've had him on the show before. He wrote the book on extremism in Europe and Nordic studies, and he's going to be talking about freedom of speech and the protection of free speech on college campuses, along with the rise of extremism around the world and maybe even on college campuses. So we'll talk with Professor Ben Teitelbaum coming up in just an hour from now. Really looking forward to that one. It's been a while since we chatted, so looking forward to chatting with him in just a bit. Your thoughts and calls, 316-721-8255, and let's kick off hour number 2 with a phone call. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Bill. How are you today?
I'm doing great, sir. How you doing?
Fantastic. I just had a curious thought about the new WSU police chief that y'all mentioned in the news.
Okay.
Well, first of all, why did they go military? And then, since he's not a certified law enforcement officer in Kansas, he's going to have to go through the entire basic school and the executive school, and we're going to spend a ton of money on him and hope he passes. Otherwise, he can't be the chief of police in Kansas.
Sure. Well, it's an interesting point. I would hope that having the military background and experience, that he would be able to fly through the law enforcement training relatively quickly and without a problem. But I see it as just as if we're training anybody else, going into there that wants to become a law enforcement officer, if they have the passion for it and they have somewhat experience with the military, that they'd be able to go through it relatively easy, and then we can get them up into that position. But I see your point. I mean, it would be almost financially easier to maybe hire someone that has the background in law enforcement, or at least pass the training first before we actually hire them in that position, before we hire them and then try and get them the training to do so. I hope, though, that he's just got enough of the military experience behind him in order to be able to fill those gaps and be able to do the job that he wants to do.
Yeah, well, one would hope, but I mean, he's not going to be any use to anybody until he completes the academy, and that's on a set basis. That whole 500, 600 hours that they have to go to up in Hutchinson, there's no quick way around that. I mean, if he was a certified law enforcement officer in some other state, they do reciprocal testing sometimes, but they won't do that for the military. So it's going to be, it says he's going to start in July, but realistically, until he gets done with all the school and stuff, it'll be probably somewhere in December before he can actually do any work.
Sure. And I don't know how big the law enforcement is and the police force is on campus. I haven't really looked at how big the force is itself. I don't know if it's something that can kind of just coast along and kind of do its thing until he gets there to kind of oversee it all, or if they need to have some type of close supervision to on site with a manager on there, or if the previous managers are going to be able to kind of oversee things until he gets his training done. So that'll be interesting to see kind of where it all falls into place. I'm hoping that, we've seen the decrease in a lot of the crime on college campuses over the last year. We saw, an 8-10% decrease on some of the crimes that's happened both at WSU, K-State, and KU, which is a really good sign, and hopefully that'll continue a little bit. But I see your point for sure that, we want to make sure that we're getting the right people in there to be able to do the job.
Yeah, that's true. And hopefully he does a good job. I'm pretty sure he's a smart, intelligent guy, but
sure,
it just seems like they're spinning their wheels and wasting money for another 6 months, which, they really don't seem to have you know, and the police force is not very big, maybe 20-something people, but I think crime is going to go up here with the with the apartments on campus and the dorm people. There's a lot more people on campus, which, the more people, especially at night, and if they're in their regular living conditions, more chances for things like domestic violence and auto thefts and burglaries and things like that.
Sure.
So I think the numbers are going to go up way before they ever go down.
Well, let's. I hope you're wrong, but we'll see on that one. I appreciate the call very much, Bill. I appreciate that. 316-721-8255. Look, I mean, the crime does happen on campus quite a bit when it comes to the young individuals, and I don't know their reasoning for it because they're away from home and they're rebelling and they see the opportunity to do something. My car was broken into in college. And it drove me nuts. I had my beautiful car, my first high school car, my first car that I ever had, and I actually had it for I want to say 5-6 years, and I put good 380,000 miles on it before it actually broke down. It was a beautiful car, but I was in college and ended up going over to a buddy's dorm room one night and parked it in front, and he apparently, I don't know if I didn't lock the car door, which was stupid on my end, or I don't remember if he found a way to unlock the car, which could potentially be as well. But I came out and there were some police officers around my car, and I thought I had done something wrong, but they ended up apprehending the guy, and he was using a screwdriver to try and pry out the stereo unit on my console, and completely mangled it and destroyed it, and had to get a claim, and I got it taken care of for like $150 and had to get that replaced. But you're right. So, I mean, there is a lot of crime. Now, granted, that was Bowling Green State University in Ohio, and that college was a lot bigger than I think Wichita State. But we need to have a decent law enforcement. Now, what we need to do, and I think that this would help decrease the crime as well, and we actually can lump this up to some of the other universities in the state from last year, is, I mean, if we want to go into the Second Amendment debate and make sure that we have plenty of students that are carrying on campus, or at least the opportunity to carry on campus, and we've already seen an 8 to 10% crime decrease, and I lump it up into largely because of that. Because how many students actually do you think are going to try and break into somebody's car, steal something, break into a dorm room, or do something really, really stupid if there's the potential of one of the other students next door to them actually having a firearm? And it goes into any other gun-free zone where you're going to see a higher crime rate in gun-free zones. And the law enforcement on campus is going to be like law enforcement anywhere else in the city or in the states or anywhere else, where they're going to be more reactionary as opposed to actually stopping something on the forefront. That's just the way it is. Law enforcement really can't stop everything and can't be everywhere at all the time. I talked about, and I joked about on Friday with I talked about it yesterday with the jerk that was driving and ended up just about ramming me off the road on Kellogg on Friday when I was heading home. Where were the cops on that one? It would have been really nice, but I had to take matters into my own hand and chase him down and be very angry. And he gave me a nice little, flying one-fingered salute and so on and so forth because there were no cops around. And if they would have saw that type of behavior, then they would have been able to stop it. Now, I have had the incident where they've tried to act like jerks like that before, and luckily there was a cop around, but that can't happen all the time. How many cases do we see of people breaking into homes and then you can't do anything until the cops get there? Cops are reactionary. Law enforcement, unfortunately, for the best of their ability, are reactionary to a situation as opposed to being able to prevent something. They're not preventative. They're not there for the preventative measure. And whether we're talking about a city, whether we're talking about your home, whether we're talking about a business, or whether we're talking about a college campus, the more firearms that are available and the opportunity for firearms to be available, then the less crime we're going to see because people are really scared. So it's a great point. I'm glad you brought up that topic, Bill, just because you're right. I mean, I see the point definitely when it comes to the training of an individual for the law enforcement to become the head of the law enforcement there for the university. At the same time, let's try and get some more guns on campus. Let's get some more individuals that actually can carry on campus, that actually feel comfortable doing so, and then we don't have to worry about it as much because then we can take matters into our own hands if necessary. 316-721-8255. I want to take a break. When we come back, there is some news from south of the border down in Oklahoma, not the teachers, but another issue, and what may be coming here to the state of Kansas. Some may like this, some may not. We'll talk about it when we come back. 18 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Ag News from Mid-America Ag Network. I'm Craig Mead. Well, as we all know, the weather has wreaked havoc on farming over the last several months, and it continues. The National Agricultural Statistics Service crop progress report released Monday afternoon shows corn planting progress behind normal.
Looking first at corn planting, nationally the number by April 15th is 3% of the intended acreage planted. 5-year average is 5% for the U.S. Last year, 6%. You look at the major Midwestern states, not a single acre of corn yet planted. In states like Illinois and Iowa, 5-year averages in those states are 5% and 3% respectively. Every single state that typically reports planting at this point in the season is behind schedule.
USDA meteorologist Brad Rippey says Texas, however, has 60% of its corn planted. The winter wheat crop continues to struggle. Kansas, 46% poor to very poor. Oklahoma, 65% of the winter wheat crop is in poor to very poor condition, according to the National Agricultural Statistics Service. Mid-America Ag Network Soil Temperature Report brought to you by Abilene Machine. Ag producers around the country depend on Abilene Machine for high-quality ag replacement parts at the lowest possible prices. Call 800-255-0337 for new remanufactured and recycled parts for planters, drills, tractors, combines, and more. Order online at AbileneMachine.com. Last weekend, and cold temperatures did not help soil temperatures this morning. 32 and 33 degrees in the northern two-thirds of Nebraska, 35, 36, and 37 in the southern one-third. The northern sections of Kansas, same story there, warming a bit as we go south, 40, 41, and 42 degrees in the middle part of the state. Some of the counties in south-central Kansas, 44 and 45 degrees. A few degrees warmer in Oklahoma, especially in the southern half of the state, 55, 56, and 57 degrees. Ag News, Soil Temperature Report, Mid-America Ag Network.
Welcome back into the Voice of Reason, 23 minutes past the hour. By the way, appreciate the call from Bill. I didn't have the story up in front of me, but I did a little research over the break. Hat tip to KSN.com. Rodney Clark is the individual that got announced as the new Wichita State Police Department, as the chief of police. Rodney Clark, a major in the U.S. Army, more than 20 years of law enforcement experience. I think he'll be all right. I think he'll be all right being able to be the head of that. Now, he'll obviously have to go through the training for the state of Kansas and so on and so forth, but being in the military, a major in the U.S. Army, 20 years of law enforcement, assistant professor of military science for the U.S. Army ROTC, and let's see, at the Rochester Institute of Technology, retiring from the Army to lead the department. He's anticipated to start on July 2nd. He served as military police commander at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, leading units of 200 military police officers and providing law enforcement to a community of more than 30,000 people. So he's got the law enforcement background on his side. He's done it for a while and doing it from the military standpoint. So he'll be able to run the law enforcement at Wichita State from the military aspect of that. So I am really excited about that. And he'll go through the training, obviously, here, but having the military law enforcement experience on that end for a really long time, I think he'll do a fantastic job of that. So, but I get your point. I mean, when we look at the finances of it, if we want to look at where we're spending the money and where we're investing, is he worth the investment? I think he is. Whether, the time frame of when the window is actually viable for him to start as opposed to when the classes are going to be starting and if he's going to be available, so on and so forth, that's something that I guess we could look at, and I definitely see that point. But I think with someone like that type of experience to be able to protect our children and, well, our young adults being in college, I think is definitely viable and totally worth the investment on that one. So Rodney Clark is his name, major in the U.S. Army with 20 years of law enforcement experience. 316-721-8255. Speaking of law enforcement and the firearms and being able to keep our children and our young adults protected by guns and firearms, if you have not heard, we've been talking about it the last couple of days, but on Friday, I'm really excited. I'm going to be broadcasting the entire morning show live up in Topeka for the Second Amendment rally, as we're going to be on the Capitol. The first time I've actually gone to Topeka. I'm really excited about going up to Topeka on Friday, doing the show up there live, and then I will be hosting and emceeing the rally presented by the Kansas Rifle Association, as we have a lot of our gubernatorial candidates, many of our legislators that are going to be speaking at this rally, talking about legislation in Kansas, talking about defending the Second Amendment. I'll be up there emceeing and hosting that rally. That starts on Friday at 10 a.m. Yes, it is 420. Yes, I'm sure we'll have some others trickling into the rally thinking it's a rally for something else, and of course that's going to be my duty to make fun of them and be able to have a little fun with that. Also, after the rally, after 10. That starts at 10 o'clock. It'll go probably till about 11:30, 12-ish. I'll be heading up to Kansas City and Lenexa for the Kansas State Rifle Association's annual meeting as I talk with different exhibitors and vendors, and we'll talk with the different candidates that are going to be up there. Pretty much all the gubernatorial candidates, all of the congressional candidates, they'll all be up in Lenexa for that, supporting the Second Amendment. They'll have speakers. They'll have guests. I'll be interviewing all of them. You can hear updates here on the KQAM airwaves. You'll be able to see them on the Facebook page on KQAM. All of that. And then, of course, a Saturday morning benefit shootout that's going to happen as well. I'll be up there all day Friday and Saturday covering the entire thing. It's going to be really, really fun, and it's going to be really cool. Brought to you by the way, Augusta Flight Center and JD Aviation, Phil's Coins, Jimmy's Egg, AutoSmart, Rob's Gun Tech and Firearms, and MJ's Chuck Repair in Mound Ridge. And, of course, the Kansas State Rifle Association. We appreciate all those sponsors partnering up with us, allowing us to go up to Topeka, allowing us to go up to Lenexa, being able to cover this event. It's going to be really great. So if you're not able to make it because, I don't know, you work and you're not able to get up there, then it's okay. I'll have you covered. All you got to do is tune into KQAM, and we'll have updates for you every couple hours on the airwaves. And, of course, the Facebook page, just go to facebook.com/1480KQAM, and we'll have some of those up. I'm going to try. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it happen or not, depending on what the setup looks like. But for the shootout on Saturday morning for the competition, where they do the benefit shootout, I'm going to try and do a Facebook Live for some of that. I'm going to try and get a Facebook Live going for that, at least for a little bit, so you can see some of the shootings and see some how it all is set up. I don't know if I'm going to be able to or not. We'll definitely be taking lots of pictures with many of the candidates and the speakers and the venues. So it's going to be at the Hyatt Place in Lenexa. If you want more information on that, ksraweb.org, at ksraweb.org, and you can get that. I think it's like $35 a ticket for the entire 2 days, including the dinner on Friday night. So it's going to be a big deal. A lot of things happening on that front. Appreciate those guys and our sponsors being able to allow us to do that. Hat tip to KOCO.com, KOCO.com, News Channel 5 out of Oklahoma. Senate passes bill allowing Oklahoma farmers to grow hemp. Now they're growing it, and I've been supportive of the agricultural hemp in the state of Kansas. I think it could be some potential good revenue generators for Kansas, but they kind of need it more than we do right now with their financial situation in Oklahoma, as they've not only had their regular legislative session, but an ongoing special session trying to actually figure out what to do with their bills. They've cut back on quite a bit of their spending, including education, which led to the teacher walkout over the last 2 weeks. Would hemp be able to increase their revenue and a diversity of an industry enough to generate some revenue in Oklahoma? And should that be an example of what we can do here in the state of Kansas? Now, I don't want the money, if we do end up doing this, going towards education. I don't want it going towards that. We have, first off, enough money going towards education. Number two, is that really the appropriate message that we could send to our children? But the hemp issue itself, to diversify the agriculture side of the state and bringing in some revenue, could potentially be some positives. And many Republicans and many conservatives are partnering up and being able to support this, and even here in the state of Kansas. So we may see that move forward. When we talked to State Senator Ty Masterson last week, he had mentioned that it's actually gained some traction this year. We might see some positive movement on that this year, and we'll see what happens. Now, that's not to say it's going to go anywhere with medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, but when it comes to agricultural hemp, we may see some movement here in Kansas. I don't know. I mean, we're going to be in the last couple weeks of the session. They're going to be too focused on educational spending and what to do with our tax rate before they focus on agricultural hemp. But it could be relatively soon. We'll have more information on that a little bit later. But Oklahoma Senate passes that bill allowing farmers to grow industrial and agricultural hemp. A step in the right direction. That's for you to decide. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on. When we come back, City Councilman Brian Frey going to join us, talk about some of the Wichita City issues. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier, your personal political therapist. Give him a call at 721-TALK.
Making it happen today on a Tuesday. Welcome into the Patriotic Tuesday. We love having you here. Good morning to you. Wherever you may be, however you may be watching and or listening, we love it. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK, 36 minutes past the hour. There's a lot of news happening. I know we're kind of bouncing around today, but I want to try and get as much of it in as we can and then open it up to you to comment yay or nay on a lot of these issues. It is time for our city update.
We built this city.
As we have City Council member in every single Tuesday, Mr. Brian Fry back with us. What's happening, sir?
Good morning, Andy. Just looking out the window here, and I'm seeing this giant deer walk by. It's
it's nice.
Very cool surroundings you have out here.
It's so calming. We have the little creek in there, and we have now snakes are down there, which means I don't go anywhere near that vicinity.
I agree.
Unless I have like a flamethrower and a 12-gauge scatter shotgun. But there are deer and turkey that go through all that little. It's so calming as you look out the radio studio.
I was just looking out the window and thought, man, that's cool to be able to see that every day.
I love it. A lot of things happening with the city. We're growing. We're seeing some positive movement. Now, before we get into the meeting from last week and what's coming up this week, of course, the big issue, the big news that came out with the city and with the community was the Andrew Finch decision.
Right.
Last week, we had a huge discussion, the entire 3-hour program on Friday, talking about it. The DA coming out saying that under our laws, under the stand your ground laws, that if you shoot someone in self-defense, either as a citizen or as a law enforcement agent, that you are immune to prosecution unless they absolutely can prove that it was an unjustified shooting. And that's the law that came into play. So therefore, the DA did not follow any charges against the law enforcement officer, Officer 1, after seeing some of the body cam and seeing what happened. And that's it. A lot of people not very happy with that. We had a big discussion, a very emotional, passionate discussion with a lot of individuals on Friday. From the city standpoint, though, it's not quite over from your guys' end, though.
Right. Well, to the specific case, the specifics of the case itself, obviously I can't talk very much about that because there is a civil lawsuit. But
sure.
What I can say, obviously, is that it's still a very tragic situation, and we definitely feel for the family. Totally shouldn't have happened, right? Totally. But again, the DA has made his decision, and it's his decision to make. It's a totally independent body. He's the only one that can prosecute. He's the only one that can file charges. He's made that decision. I understand there are people that don't like the decision. Certainly, I get that. But there's nothing else that we as a city can do as it relates to that decision. He made it. We have to move forward on that.
That's his job.
That's right. So what we're doing, obviously the police department has an internal investigation that they have to complete now based off the findings of DA Bennett. And so they'll review all their policies and their training to make sure that they're doing everything they should and move forward with that. There's also something that we instituted last year, and it's the Citizen Review Board. It's a police profile board to make sure that they go back in as well and look at it from another set of eyes. And this is made up of volunteers that we have appointed through the city manager's office to look at the case. And again, look at the training, the policies. What can we do different? What can we take from this tragic event and make ourselves better? So those are the next two steps that have to happen now that Bennett has made his decision. The civil case can continue on, but, that's really all I can say at this point. And again, I know your show Friday had a lot of passion, a lot of emotion, and we totally get that. But we had to let Mr. Bennett do his process and his decision, and now we can keep going.
Now we can look at what we can do to make sure this. And again, I don't know how many swatting incidences we've had in the community lately. Hopefully it hasn't been very many. I don't know. This is a new weird fad or trend of what people think is a gag or something, which is really sick.
Yeah.
It's really sick. And I'm glad that we're looking at state legislation to try and persecute.
And national.
It's national.
Yeah, Congressman Estes introduced a bill as well.
Exactly, because this is starting to become something very dangerous and serious. But we need to remember as well that, obviously, this got a lot of attention because of what the outcome came to be. There have been other incidences where we didn't see this type of outcome. So for the most part, we've done very good at trying to keep this at bay and not have anyone be harmed in this process. Unfortunately, this was a different situation, and we need to review to make sure that we can learn from our mistakes and not see it happen again.
Absolutely.
That's really what we got to do. So I'm glad you guys are working on that. We'll have some more information on that. I know that if people want to comment on that, I know that there's already a few that want to make a comment today.
Right.
At the City Council member.
Again, we have public agenda, and that's public speakers can come in, and we have people signed up today to talk about police. And so
okay,
we'll continue to listen, continue to hear them, obviously. So.
Sure. Very good. Very good. How'd last meetings go last week?
It was a pretty good meeting. Things have been moving great in the city right now. It's the busy season where we get all these projects underway and, everybody wanting to move forward. Today we've got the Spirit Development Agreement. Remember last year at the end of the year, Spirit came forward and said, we want to expand. We want to, we've got the demand. We don't have enough facilities. We need more people. And so they approached us on this project. And today we're moving forward on the development agreement. If you remember, this will add 1,000 more employees and about $500 million in investment between facilities and equipment and machinery. To make this happen, they came to us and the county and said, we need some help making this facility. It's a 150,000 square foot project, about $23 million of investment. We're adding to that with cash as well as some forgiveness on some water bills and so forth.
Sure.
The county's adding cash to it. Again, with this, it's fast track so they can get it going immediately. They've got the demand. They need this facility in place. They've committed to adding 1,000 more jobs and here's the key point here, $56,000 annual salary.
Wow.
So, I
love it.
That's significant. When you look at that over a 20-year period, which is what the terms are on this agreement, that's $1.2 billion of new salaries being added to this community.
Injected into the community. And I'm going to say that's just above the average around here, isn't it?
Yes.
Right around 54, 55?
Right. Average is about 45. So this 45. Is 56,000. So this is wealth-generating income, right, for an individual. And so thinking about that trickle-down effect, you add $1.2 billion into this economy, that's going to have a outcome and consequences for suppliers, for restaurants, for retail, for home builders,
sure,
up and down the line. And it solidifies Spirit's place in this community, continues that investment, keeps them growing. If you remember, they were a single, when they originally started as that Boeing offshoot, they were doing one project.
Sure.
And now they're expanded into multiple different companies that they provide services for. So this is a great win for us. I know there's always that concern about what happens if Spirit leaves. Boeing left. Could Spirit leave, right? Well, there are serious clawbacks in this development agreement that if they leave, they have to pay it all back.
Okay.
If they don't fulfill their obligations on hiring, there's a reduction in the amount that they get, right?
Okay.
So we have protection on this. It's just not, here's the money, go do it. No, here's the money, but if you don't follow through, there are consequences, and you have to pay back. And so at the end of the day, we still have that infrastructure, that superstructure that's built on this campus that could be repurposed for whatever reasons.
Well, and it's encouraging to hear that they feel comfortable wanting to do so, not only invest the money in the community here, but that shows, I think, a sign of the economy, on where the economy is looking at, the potential, what's going to be growing over the next few years, both locally and nationwide with the economy, and the fact that they're wanting to sink in that much money. That's a good sign for not just that industry, but for other industries that are going to follow suit very soon.
Right, and we're seeing great growth right now. If you listen to Tom Gentile, who's the head of Spirit out there, he talks about the demand for general aviation, and it's amazing, the statistics, and they have got a long growth period, and they're going to continue to see this investment and continue to see projects and employment and so forth going on out there. So it's a great win for us. We always look for that. We have a ROI that we always try to achieve on every project.
Sure.
Our ROI is a 1.3 to 1. Yeah, that's more than most communities ask for. Most communities just hope for a 1 to 1, right? Okay. We require 1.3 to 1. That's our goal. Now, this one's falling just a little short of that. I think it's 1.21.
Okay.
But it's still over 1 to 1. And we still have this significant salary investment into the community that you can't touch, right? I mean, what other communities are adding $560,000 a year in salaries? That's just tremendous.
It's huge. I love that. Very good. 316-721-8255. We do have a caller on the line. If you want to ask a question to City Council Member Brian Fry, you can do so, as we'll get into this week's meeting as well. But it's good to hear economic growth. We're seeing things happen little by little, my friends. That's what we are all about. Let's go to the phones here. Good morning. What's your name?
Hello.
Hello. How we doing?
This This is Helen. I was calling about another issue.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, hang tight, Ellen. We'll get to you here in just a little bit, or if you want to call back in a bit, right now we have limited time with Brian. I don't want to miss that opportunity, so I appreciate that. Give us a call back in just a little bit here, and we'll get you covered. 316-721-8255. The meeting today. By the way, before we move topics on that, where are we at with that? I mean, the contracts are signed. When do they want to start this expansion in the community?
So the reason why this is on the agenda today is we're trying to fast track it so that we can get started as quickly as possible. You know, they came to us last December. We had to have all the attorneys get involved and make sure all the contracts and the specifics and making this deal put together. So hopefully today we can hear it, decide it, move forward. The county then does it tomorrow. And then hopefully we can get this done and start construction. I know they have very aggressive plans for getting these folks hired, which is a key thing.
Sure.
I mean, that's another great. We've got jobs.
We've got
significant jobs,
yes.
right? So they've got a very aggressive plan. So they need to get that. They need to get this under construction. It's a 150,000 square foot facility.
Sure.
I mean, it's just not something you do in a couple of months.
No, I know that before we've talked about we've had a worker shortage as well. So, but I mean, with jobs at $55,000-$56,000 like this, that's got to entice people to start looking at across state lines, saying, "Hey, maybe Wichita's the place I need to move and start coming here." So that's going to help out that problem as well.
I think we're going to hear some of their plans today as it relates to how aggressive they're going to be with their recruitment. Certainly, you're not going to pull all those from just the Wichita area.
Sure.
You're going to have to go into other markets, markets that have got some skilled aviation and manufacturing workers. Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Dallas, Florida, California. Start drawing those. I mean, we got a great story to tell here, right? We got fantastic quality of life, low commutes. You get a lot more for your dollar in Wichita than you would in Florida or California. So the recruitment's going to be very big and started getting those folks here. But it has to get fast-tracked so that they can start meeting that demand because it's big. So
I could see it start happening this summer.
Absolutely.
Booming all around.
Absolutely. And then you get the construction project of the building itself. That's going to be a nice project for a contractor and multiple contractors. So
absolutely.
Other couple things we've got today, the development plan for Delano. It's been about 15 years since we've had a development plan for that region. If Delano is bordered by Kellogg and the river, Meridian to the river. It's right there west of the Arkansas.
Sure.
We haven't had a master plan for that community or that section of town in 15 years. So because there's so much happening there between the stadium, the River Vista, some of the restaurants, and everything that's happening in that corridor.
Sure.
You just kind of have to set some guidelines. Doesn't mean that everything happens in there the way it says it, but there's some short-term, cleaning up some zoning issues, some long-term with signage and wayfinding, and then just how everything gets developed, especially with the baseball stadium. So we're going to hear that plan today. I know the county's already approved it. And then one other thing I'd like to mention real quick, this Saturday at 1:30, we're going to have Governor Colyer in town.
Very good.
And he's going to be here to sign the license plate bill.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Which is the plates for parks, which the Wichita flag license plate. Both House and Senate approved that, and so now it's ready for his signature.
Very good.
He's endorsed it heartily. He's coming down. We're going to do an official signing at Proct Wetlands, which is a new park that we're developing, and so we're going to do the groundbreaking immediately after the signing ceremony.
Very good.
So, and that's a $2 million first phase of the construction of that park that we're going to start immediately. So we decided it'd be fun to combine those two events. So if you're out and about Saturday and you want to meet the governor and want to be part of this groundbreaking, it's at Proct Wetlands, which is at 29th and Mays Road, just east of the new Hampton that was opened.
I'm excited to see these license plates. And now, is it going to be the whole thing is just one big flag, or is it going to be a flag on there? What's it going to kind of be designed as?
Well, unfortunately, this is radio, so I can't show you a picture of it.
That's all right.
But yes, we're using the full plate as the flag design.
How fun.
So the numbers will be in the red field as the rays extend out on the flag itself.
Okay.
That's where the numbers will be. And then the symbol is on the left side of the plate.
Very
so
good.
As opposed to some of these other affinity plates that just have a logo on the left side, we're using the full thing. So it's very unique, very eye-catching. Plates will be available starting January 1 now. So.
January 1. That's got to be proud of where we're at.
Yes, it is. It's just great to see the pride and the community's spirit to bring it back full circle,
exactly,
right?
Right.
So it's really fun right now to be in Wichita and seeing all the excitement and enthusiasm for what we're doing. So
I love that. If people want to show up to the city council meeting today, again, when and where is that, and how can they participate?
So today we start at 9 a.m. and City Hall is Central and Main. And the next week we have a consent meeting, so a little different, a lot less business involved. But today we have a full agenda, and we start at 9, and we expect, a lot of people in the audience today, especially because of the spirit deal as well. So
sure, very good. Brian Fry, City Council member. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. So many.
Thank you.
We'd always think that, well, the city's kind of hanging out and not doing a whole lot, but every week we always got so much to talk about. So
it is. It's just a great time to be in Wichita. So
it really is. Brian, we always appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday.
Thank you.
Always a great time. 8 minutes to the top of the hour. Let's go ahead and take one more break. We'll open up lines to you. Oh, there it is. You know what? Actually, we can put this near the camera here real quick. If you're watching the TV or the Facebook Live, we actually have a picture of what the license plate is going to look like right there. It's going to be pretty awesome if you want to get one of those again starting at January of next year. I love it. Good times. Brian Fry, City Council member right there, 316-721-8255. We'll open up lines to you when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason. Thanks again to Wichita City Council member Brian Fry. Always great information on the city, good, bad, or indifferent. I want to hear from you, your thoughts. 316-721-8255. Let's wrap up hour number 2 with a phone call. Coming up, by the way, hour number 3, Professor Ben Teitelbaum will join the show. We've had him on before from the University of Colorado in Boulder as he chats about free speech on campus. Let's go to the phones here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hello?
Helen, what's going on?
Well, I was calling back. I was calling about the issue that you were talking about with your little child's toy thing.
Yes,
that kept going off.
That's right.
And you say that you disabled it. You took out all the batteries.
I think so. Maybe we missed some or something, but I don't know. It's been 2 nights in a row, and it's weird because it only happens within an hour window every night, not the rest of the day, not the rest of the night, just an hour before, of course, I have to wake up in the morning.
Right.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
It's a little crazy.
But now, wasn't it just not too long ago that you did an interview with a fortune teller or something like that?
Yeah, when was that? It was about a month ago, I believe. We did we interviewed a psychic. I know in October we always like to interview on Halloween. We interviewed the Wichita Paranormal Research Society. And the weird thing is, Helen, is that this stuff has happened before, and there's some really crazy stories. I know people are going to be like, oh my gosh, talk about the voice of reason here. He's a freaking nut job. But there's been some weird stuff that's happened years ago that haven't happened in a really long time, and now it seems to be happening again. So it's really crazy. Helen, I want you to, if you want to comment on that a little bit. I'm out of time here, but let's talk about it a little bit later because it is kind of a fascinating story. I may tell the story before the end of the show today on what's happened in the past, and then why it's a little odd or interesting for this happening now. Got to take a break, though. Top of the hour. Got a hard break. When we come back, Professor Ben Teitelbaum going to be joining us. There you go. The nutso Andy Hoosier on The Voice of Reason. Talking about reason. That's all right. We dig it. It's a lot of fun. Stay here. Hour number 3 of The Voice of Reason.
It's time for Reason.
The government is nothing more in this situation than the big bad wolf in the cloak of a sheep, trying to look like the innocent little grandmother, trying to look like the innocent little Red Riding Hood when she knocks on the door the first time to intrude into the house to eat the grandmother. The government is the dangerous one in this situation, and we're allowing them to investigate Facebook for things that the private market can solve itself in the private sector.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, welcome Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. We're also simulcasting on KGBT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard, baby. It's great to have you along today on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday, because that's just the way we roll. 7 minutes past the hour, and it's great to have you along. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, we've had a great show. Thanks again to City Council member Brian Fry joining in the last half hour. And I don't know if I'm going to talk about the story at the bottom of the hour, wrapping up the show. I don't know yet. We'll see how things go, because I don't want to sound like the nut. And it kind of does come across that way, but we'll see. I may talk about the story with the spookiness of what's happened in the past. 316-721-8255. I want to shift gears a little bit, though, and it's being a millennial myself and an individual who loves the debate and the dialogue, and I remember going through college, and colleges usually have a slant politically one way or another, and there's been a ongoing discussion lately for the mainstream about the protection of freedom of speech on campus, with students being able to rally or protest or hold up signs or be able to advocate for whatever they want to, for them to be able to bring in speakers. I mean, look, I was the chairman of the College Republicans in college for the longest time, and we paid for speakers, and we would get donations and our membership fees, and the university would contribute a little bit, and we'd be able to go on trips to different political events or bring in speakers and then try and get it. And nowadays it seems like that's been censored a little bit. And that's very concerning, because the university itself is supposed to be the safe haven for speech on all across the board and have the dialogue. You're supposed to be sharp when it comes to debating, because you hear all the different ideas and you had the panel discussions and the debates and so on and so forth. And on the phone with us, I'm really excited to have him back on. It's been way too long since we've had him on the program. He is the former head of Nordic Studies at the University of Colorado in Boulder. His book, Lions of the North, when we talked to him before about the new Nordic radical nationalism. He's also the assistant professor for ethnomusicology at the University of Colorado in Boulder. It's Professor Ben Teitelbaum back on the line with us. Ben, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well, Andy. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Hey, it's great to get you back on the show. It's been way too long. I really enjoyed our conversation last time. And
likewise.
I thought it was really, really important to get you back on here, being a professor, especially being in a place like Boulder and the University of Colorado, where there's been a national understanding that University of Colorado has been a very far left, predominantly progressive campus. And with the argument nationwide about the freedom of speech and the right for students to have the free speech and to be able to bring certain speakers on. I mean, we see in California, the protests just to bring in someone like Ann Coulter or Ben Shapiro or someone like that. From your standpoint, being a professor there, have you seen that type of behavior or that type of response to certain ideas or speakers coming into University of Colorado?
Well, Yes. Although if we think about like Ann Coulter and her recent the recent events that took place at University of California, Berkeley,
yes,
where she was eventually, she was shut out.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't seen as much pressure for that. We've had students demonstrate. We've had counter protests and things like that.
Sure, which is okay.
Which is okay. I still think it's somewhat unfortunate, because it's always, what is the purpose of drowning somebody out or blocking yourself from hearing the opinion of somebody else? I really struggle to see how anybody gains from that, or how you win an argument by doing that.
Sure.
But I certainly prefer that to outright attempts to stop somebody coming to campus or to stop somebody from speaking. I can give you an example, Andy. When Ann Coulter came to campus a couple of weeks ago, a big portion of the audience were students who had, it sounds like a heavy word, but infiltrated, gone into the event with the intent to not really sit and listen.
Sure.
But thank goodness their protest was to stand up in the middle and walk out. They deprived themselves of the opportunity to hear the speaker, but they didn't really mess it up for anybody else.
Sure.
And that's among all the ways that somebody could protest a speaker coming to campus. I suppose that's got to be one of the better ones.
Which I'm surprised Ann Coulter, I'm really excited that Ann Coulter would come to the University of Colorado like that, because, I mean, why not be able to come to the campuses that, you know that you may not be the most popular individual, but to hear what they have to say. I mean, when I went to Bowling Green State University in Ohio, we had some speakers that the college Democrats brought in that I didn't care for in any way, shape, or form, and I didn't always go to all of them, but I didn't go out and picket and protest or even try and stop them from coming, because if that's who they want to come in and have speak, then all the power to them.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the move to say that someone can't come and speak, or that we're better off not knowing what somebody has to say. That's a scary sentiment for me, and one that does not, in fact, belong on a university campus.
Mm-hmm.
It is the sort of place that universities work best when students are being forced, challenged to defend their ideas, also being exposed to people who especially people who really upset them.
Sure.
That's what really matters is when it's not when you go to a place and everybody recites the same ideas and you think that you're open-minded and you hear the same ideas coming from the same people all the time. It's when you get to listen to someone who really, really rubs you the wrong way and makes you think differently. That's golden to me.
Absolutely. I mean, can you tell a difference from, I mean, you have your classes, and I'm sure that you have a lot of dialogue, and especially, with the Nordic studies, this different discussions or topics, or with your book with radicalism and nationalism. If you bring up these types of topics in the classroom and you just kind of let the students dialogue and debate on certain issues, are you able to tell a style of debate from one side or another if they've been sheltered on either side of the aisle from opposing views, as opposed to someone who's been kind of baptized in the fire for a long time and knows how to throw out the counterpoints to someone's arguments?
Oh, certainly. I mean, Andy, you and I were chatting a little bit before the show. I was mentioning, on the one hand, I've been in universities where I went to school, Brown University, very very left-leaning campus. The best newspaper on campus was a libertarian paper,
sure.
and I say that not considering myself to be a libertarian in any way, but those were students who had gone out of their way, put their head in front of the open fire hydrant, and learned to survive and breathe anyways. And they were sharp, and they were better, more well read than many of the people they were arguing with.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I teach a class on radicalism at the University of Colorado, and I go out of my way to find people who can argue controversial perspectives really well. And I know, even if their views are wrong, I know that there are smart people, and I know that the students most often have not heard somebody arguing these perspectives intelligently. And that process, just to take the edge off students, just to deny them the opportunity to stereotype.
Sure.
Students who have gone through that and take an extra second to think, an extra second to reflect, I think it's very impressive, and I do think that they gain something from it.
Well, it really kind of grounds them a little bit, because you're right. When you read it in maybe the media, or you hear a blog online and you read it that way, then it becomes kind of an ideological, philosophical standpoint, to where you generalize, you categorize individuals,
yep.
and you don't really have that personal connection. When you actually see someone face to face arguing the points that you've heard is a demonization of that person, and you have to counter it, then it really makes you think a little bit more about peeling the layer of the onion away on what you actually believe.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's true. I think most people, it's hard to say, and it's not that exciting to say in the way we talk politics these days, but most people have a lot of good things to say. Most people are smart. Most people have reasons and logical pathways that get them to the positions that they hold. It doesn't mean that there are two equally good sides to every debate, or that everybody's right about everything, but there's a lot that people have to say, and very rarely does someone hold a position because they're stupid.
Exactly. Have you seen because again, I mean, and I've been guilty of this, but I've kind of generalized the University of Colorado at Boulder all the time, and the Boulder mentality up there is being extremely progressive and kind of living in that safe space sort of thing, and I poke fun at that quite a bit. But have you seen a bit of a change on campus for the voice of many conservatives to start having a voice on in Boulder there?
Yes. And yes, I certainly have. I mean, on the one hand, Boulder, in part because of its reputation, Boulder has a conservative studies program that was created by alumni. as an attempt to counterbalance the liberal reputation of the campus. There are quite a few people who are unsatisfied with that. They see the existence of one single conservative studies professorship, for example. We always have one visiting professor.
Sure.
As kind of a sign that conservatives are an extreme minority on campus and need special protection.
Sure.
So, but the more profound change, the difference is in the classroom. I give a talk at the beginning of every one of my classes where I explain that I will treat students with respect. I want them to treat each other with respect. I want them to be conscientious of each other's feelings, but my classroom is not a safe space.
Sure.
And I intend to offend students and everybody, hopefully equally.
Sure.
But I intend to offend in my classroom. That speech always goes over very well. And any time we've heard, we've had a discussion about freedom of speech, or about the right to offend, the importance of being able to hear offensive viewpoints and not feel strong in the face of confronting offensive viewpoints. Those positions feel very strong to me among the student body today. If that means that they're conservative, I'm not totally sure, but it does signal to me that there is a pushback against the notion that university campuses need to be these quarantined, highly policed, highly processed, highly editorialized spaces. Mm-hmm. Where people are allowed to put pressure on faculty and other students to maintain certain language codes and things like that.
Very good. Well, it's good to hear and encouraging to hear that we're seeing some of that. 18 minutes past the hour. Ben, can you stick around for another segment with us? I got some more questions I'd love to ask you.
Sure, absolutely.
Fantastic. All right, hang on the line here. We'll get, if you want to ask a question as well, 316-721-8255. A fascinating conversation, free speech on campuses, and even a campus like the University of Colorado at Boulder, the conservative movement's rising up and actually beginning to have a voice in some of these areas that predominantly have not been heard in many places like this before. We'll talk about this more when we come back. Your thoughts and calls as well. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
This is about the only time, and it's relatively appropriate that I actually get to play some of this on the show, as Professor Ben Teitelbaum on the show with us here at the Nordic Studies. And Ben, I told you, my favorite band in the entire world, Amon Amarth. I still dig them, my friend. I love it. By the way, when's the last time you've been over that way?
Oh, to Sweden?
Yeah.
Let's see. I go there about 3 times a year. So I haven't been there this time this year though. But I was there last October, and then the summer, and then the spring before. So
man, I love it. One of these days, that's a bucket list item. I'm going to have to go over there and travel. Professor,
go in the summertime.
Go in the summertime.
I don't want to be there in the winter.
Okay, yeah, it's a little cold up there on the wintertime. I think I'll pass on that.
And dark.
Professor Ben Teitelbaum with University of Colorado at Boulder, as we're talking about free speech on campus and conservatives starting to have a voice on the Boulder campus there as well. By the way, how many other professors do you know of in any of the studies and any of the areas of study have made the statement that you do in your class, saying that this is not a free, a safe space, that we're going to have the dialogue, we're going to have the debate, we're going to talk about all the different areas? How many other professors do that on campus, or are you kind of one of the few ones there that does that?
I don't. I would be hesitant to venture a guess to that. Actually, I don't know. I didn't start doing that because I heard that somebody else did that. I can put it that way.
Sure.
So if there are other people saying that, we're kind of living our own lives.
Sure. As you study this, and obviously since you go over to Sweden all the time, your book, Lions of the North, The Sounds of the New Nordic Radical Nationalism, and the radicalism that's happened really around the world and even began to show its colors here in the United States. I think I asked you this last time too, but have you seen, or what's your thoughts on radicalism rising up in the United States on one side of the aisle or other, or even indifferent from political sides, but just radicalism and extremism, maybe because we're not having the dialogues like we need to anymore. But have you seen a rise of radicalism in the United States?
Well, sure, certainly. It's difficult because the media attention to it can magnify it, and I think we could see that in the case of the alt-rights. That was a big story in 2016, and we are still talking about a relatively small number of people, probably.
Sure.
And in fact, it's very hard to know how many people we're talking about. There could be one person with many accounts. I also think Antifa, or Antifa as it's being called in the U.S.
Yes.
That's also something of a media phenomenon. Although all of these groups manage to be a pretty sensational public spectacles that ups their public profile. So that's part of it. But certainly when sectors of society feel like their voices aren't being heard, or when they start to feel that they're in situations of utter desperation, if they think that things are really irrevocably terrible and getting worse, that prompts people to be a little less accepting of the democratic process, a little less tolerant of representative democracy, and the notion that you might have to give and take with certain positions. All of that is pretty fertile for extremism. Of course, there's something to be said also for economic hardship.
Sure.
When people don't see a future economically, not just politically, but economically for themselves, then people can become impatient with the democratic process and turn to violent extremism.
It's sad that we have to worry about that, but it is a reality. And as you mentioned, hopefully with the economy ticking up slowly but surely, we can see a decrease in that. Hopefully with more classes like yours and with classes around the country where we start seeing a little bit more of the dialogue and saying this ain't a safe space, we're not going to have a safe space, and you're going to have to test your challenges. I mean, I've seen many videos of at least, and like you mentioned before, with the students wanting to show up to like Ann Coulter, at least some of them showed up, and whether they actually take away something from it or whether they want to walk out, but the fact that they actually stood in the same room at least is a start. So I'm hoping that that's a sign that maybe we're starting to see the pendulum swing back the other way a little bit, to where we can have some common correlation, some common dialogue again.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, universities have an important role to play there. The one way that universities are good safe spaces, I think, is that they're supposed to be places for ideas, not fists.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, this is a place where it's safe in the sense that you should know that you would not be physically attacked or assaulted or chased around or pursued professionally for the things that you say, and that is a good place for people to meet others who don't think the same way.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So that all of that can be very good.
That it is. Professor Ben Teitelbaum, we're out of time, my friend. It's an honor to talk to you. I love having you on the show. We got to get you back on more frequently. But thank you for what you do on the campus and for allowing the voice on both sides of the aisle. Again, I don't know what your politics are, and it doesn't matter. The fact that you allow the voice on both sides of the aisle happen is really courageous and really great, especially in a campus like that. So thank you for what you do.
A pleasure, Andy. It's my pleasure to be on your show.
Hey, I always love it. We'll get you back on here again soon. Got to take a bottom of the hour break. It's Open Lines to you when we come back, wrapping up the show on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Wichita's fastest growing radio show.
Something big is going on, and the American people need to know what.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Welcome into it. This is The Voice of Reason. I am Andy Hoosier, and it's an honor to have you along today on a Tuesday. Hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Let's make it happen. Thanks again to Professor Ben Teitelbaum from the University of Colorado in Boulder. Now, look, I got to say, we'll talk about this in just a second, but I love having him on the show. Great guy, great individual, and I don't know whether he's conservative, liberal, I don't know. But the fact that he allows dialogue on his campus and in his classroom is exactly what we need. It's the beginning, my friends, of the conservative voice being heard in our universities. I want to tell you one more time again today about our big event coming up this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Friday, I'll be broadcasting my show live up in Topeka for the Second Amendment rally. I'll be hosting and emceeing that rally. That begins at 10 o'clock directly after the show. We'll have different speakers. As far as I'm aware, so far of what I've heard confirmed is the majority of the GOP gubernatorial candidates will be speaking there, along with Senate President Susan Wagle. She'll be discussing a lot of the legislation in Kansas that's been voted on this year regarding the Second Amendment, so she'll be there among other speakers. So we'll have that at 10 o'clock in Topeka. If you're able to make that, I'll be hosting that. Really looking forward to it. Directly afterwards, I'll be heading up to Lenexa for the Kansas State Rifle Association's annual meeting, and they'll be having it starting at 1:30, and I'll be up there talking to vendors, exhibitors, the different candidates, gubernatorial candidates, congressional candidates, everybody that's going to be up supporting the Second Amendment there. We'll have some broadcasts on here, some updates on KQAM and on the Facebook page at facebook.com 1480 KQAM. You can check that out. Plus, we'll cover Saturday as well with the annual benefit fundraiser shootout that's going to happen Saturday morning. If you want more information on the entire event, go to ksraweb.org. Again, ksraweb.org. It's $35 tickets. That'll get you in both Friday and Saturday. And we want to thank all of our sponsors allowing KQAM and myself to be able to go up and broadcast this. That is Augusta Flight Center and JD Aviation, Rob's Gun Tech and Firearms, Phil's Coins, Jimmy's Egg, MJ's Check Repair and Moundridge, Auto Smart, and of course, the Kansas State Rifle Association. So a big event coming up Friday and Saturday. Going to be a lot of fun. Hope to see you out there. I have to laugh. First off, now look, there is a reputation of CU Boulder as one of the more progressive campuses in the country. Boulder itself as a town is a very progressive place, and I'll never forget the one time that I went up there, which I was not a fan of going to Boulder in the first place. The one time I went up there was for my brother's baseball tournament, and in the field, the baseball field right next to us, there was an adult softball league, and the adult softball league's team name was the Boulder Tree Huggers. And to me, that just validated every assumption that I had about the town and about the people as the Boulder Tree Huggers, and it drives me nuts. And it's been a sanctuary for progressivism for a very long time, and I find it now, the fact that we're having a voice again, the fact that we're actually opening up the dialogue and allowing individuals to have a voice and actually be able to debate back and forth is fantastic. I mean, that right there is the biggest win that we could possibly have. I don't care that you're progressive, but at least be able to articulate your argument and debate it and be able to defend it, instead of just categorizing any conservative as a wacko, as a nut job, as a flaming rightso, as a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist, as a Trump loving fascist, as a yada yada yada, and just being able to lump us that way. Because then everything we say you don't have to listen to, which means you don't have to validate your argument, nor do you have to counter my argument because you don't care. And we're starting to fight that. We've gone to the extreme, and the fear was that the pendulum was going to continue to keep swinging farther and farther and farther that way, and now we're seeing it come back the other way to where we can have a dialogue again because we've gone too far to the extreme. Yesterday we heard about the LGBTQ community, to where they've gone so far to the fringe and the extreme that they won't even allow supporters of them in certain ways with the drag thing to be able to actually walk in their parades because the drag is apparently offensive. We've now isolated even a fringe of their supporters because we've gone too far to the extreme. And now it's time to come back the other way. So the fact that Boulder is allowing dialogue on the campus is huge. Now, I find it hysterical, the fact that we have to have a conservative studies program because they don't, many individuals on campus there think that it is kind of the safe space and have no idea what conservative values or traditions or ideals or philosophies actually are. They don't know. They just read about it and think it's just a bunch of fascist Nazis running around. And so now alumni have started the program on campus as the Conservative Studies program. What is this conservative thing you speak of? We don't know what this conservative thing actually is. I find it hysterical, yet it is some of the best news that you can have. Starting small and being able to grow that way. We have a Conservative Studies program at the CU Boulder campus. That is fantastic. We need to start getting this at the KU campus here in Kansas. We need to start getting that at the Berkeley campus in California. conservative studies, even if you want to study it as a intellectual, a philosophical thought of, oh, look at what these peasants like to actually think about, and oh, it's how cute what they actually like to study and what they believe. I'd like to understand a little bit more about these intricate species of individuals being called conservatives. Even if you go in with that mindset, at least let's start to get the ball rolling and start lighting that flame. All it takes is a spark. All it takes is a spark, and we'll be able to actually change the mentality of many individuals. So I really appreciate what the professor does, Ben Teitelbaum, who's come on the show a couple of times, and the fact that he sees nationalism and radicalism. Nationalism is in the bad term of nationalism, not the realistic term of what nationalism actually is, but radicalism, extremism, and what he's seen overseas, going to Sweden 2-3 times a year, studying it, and being able to relate that back to us. I think it's fantastic, and I appreciate that very much so. 316-721-8255. It's open lines to you for the last half hour of the show, and let's do that. Let's go right back to the phones here. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, this is Helen again.
Helen, there you are. What's going on?
Well, I want to continue on our previous subject of your little thing, but first I'd like to say, isn't it really sad that since 1776 we still have to fight for our freedom of speech?
It is very sad. It is very sad. And it's something, I mean, you would think that would be a reminder of no matter how long time goes by or how short a time goes by, no matter how comfortable you may feel and what we've accomplished, that the fight is always there. And a lot of the young generation doesn't understand that, which is why we've given up a lot of that. And now we have to fight to reintroduce conservative values to some who may never hear it in their life because they've never been exposed to it, quote unquote. So therefore they're just like anything else, if you don't understand it, then you're fearful of it. And we don't want to be fearful of ideas, because ideas are supposed to be nothing more than help progress people into real progression, not the progressivism of what liberalism actually is. So you're right. We need to fight for it every single day. And when we don't, then we see what we've seen on college campuses, where we've kind of lost the battle for a long time.
That's kind of makes me think back of my childhood. My parents used to say, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. But,
Exactly. So it's good news that we are starting to, even though it may be small, even though it may be one professor at the CU Boulder campus where they're doing conservative studies programs, at least it's there. The option is there, and now the idea is actually being somewhat accepted on the campus grounds. Maybe not by everybody, but it's beginning to be accepted, and we can grow from there. So now we've lit the spark, and let's watch that fire grow, baby, because it's going to be really cool to see what's going to happen even at that campus in the next 10 to 15 years.
Well, just like our founding fathers told us, you got to fight for your rights.
Exactly.
Nobody's going to just give them to you. You got to keep fighting for them.
We got to fight for them every single day.
Well, and which leads into, we're in a spiritual war, which is an intellectual war.
Sure.
And with this incident with you, now I want to make sure that this is, not that you just overlooked maybe some batteries or something like that in your child's toy. But if you've done everything and it's still doing this, it's being in a spiritual war. This, entertaining this what did you call her?
The psychic. Yeah.
The psychic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they dabble with, maybe probably ignorantly, dabble with evil spirits. And like King Saul, he dabbled with evil spirits with the Witch of Endor. And he called up, had her call up the prophet Samuel. But it wasn't really Samuel. It was just a familiar spirit, an evil spirit, which, looked like, sounded like, talked like Samuel. So these people, they are dabbling in evil spirits.
Let me ask you this, because it's always fascinated me, and I don't want to go too far onto this, because I don't want people to be like, oh my gosh, this is nuts. But this is always kind of fascinating me, because I know that the Bible itself says that psychics are not good, because you're not supposed to be telling the future. No one knows the future. No one knows those sorts of things.
Except for God.
Exactly, except for God. But I do believe And I think God has done this for other individuals as well. And the lady that we had on, Joe, she said that she was Catholic and that she's been very religious and she believes in God and she's been Catholic and that it was a gift from God. And when you look at throughout time, that there has been individuals that God has given the ability to foresee things to warn people about in certain circumstances. And I truly believe that there are individuals out there that have whether it's a not necessarily psychic ability, but maybe a sixth sense or a feeling about certain things, or maybe a premonition to warn about something that may be coming in someone's personal life. And they have that ability to maybe foresee that, and they see it as their duty to try and warn that person or to prepare for that event, whatever it may be, small or major, from happening. And I think that God has given people that ability in some circumstances, don't you?
Well, if it's truly coming from God and not Satan,
sure. Oh, exactly.
Then it's going to if they're going to be able to prevent anything that, at least as far as they forewarn, they prevent. If it's true. But see, the evil spirits also know everything about you, everything about your life,
and they'll definitely take advantage of that as well. And here's the way I see personally. Here's the way I see psychics is that if I think that 90% of them are fake, they're false, they're there for the profit, they're just to try and look really cool, but not actually tell you anything in any way, shape, or form that's important. And I think that many of them are not real in any way, shape, or form. I do, as I mentioned, I personally believe that there are individuals out there that have an ability to sense things or feel things or be able to have that premonition, whether it's a sixth sense or whether it's a gift from God or whatever the case is. The problem is, and I think this is what the Bible warns about as well, is that you don't look to them for the answers, because then you're not looking to God for the answers. So the way I look at it is that if I'm needing a little pick-me-up or if I'm needing a little encouragement, then I go and, so they say, hey, you're going to do really well in this next test, or you're going to have a kid, or you're going to get this house, or whatever, and they see this premonition. Maybe it's that gift, and maybe for me, that was the pick-me-up that I needed to kind of keep me going a little bit, not necessarily looking towards them for the answer, but a little bit of that encouragement. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I don't see them as to look towards the answer, but as the encourager to kind of keep you going a little bit.
I understand the desire for encouragement, but we should be getting our encouragement from the most powerful source in the universe, which is the Lord God, and not people that that
I get it.
Most likely play with evil spirits, because King Saul, he went to this witch of Endor, and he was having a hard time.
Sure.
But him going to the witch of Endor to conjure up this evil spirit, which a familiar spirit, which disguised himself as the prophet Samuel, he ended up condemning his own soul, and he and his son ended up dying because he leaned unto these familiar spirits rather than leaning to the Lord.
That's a good point. Helen, I appreciate it. It's an interesting conversation. It's I don't think it's one that we've really had on the show before. So, and I appreciate it very much. And again, I'm a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. I don't want to focus on religion too terribly much on a political show, because hey, you just blend religion and politics together, and poof! I tell you what, you really upset a lot of people. But it's interesting, and with the activity that kind of happened a little bit, and I don't know whether there's anything there to it or not. It was a little creepy, the fact that it happened 2 nights in a row, sort of thing. But and I don't think that the psychic reading really necessarily had anything to do with it, because we've had some things like that happen before that were a little odd. But it's an interesting conversation to think about on who you look towards. And I agree with you that obviously looking towards a psychic for all the answers is obviously not the right thing to do. But it's kind of, I don't know, it intrigues me. It intrigues me a little bit, because I'm a curious kind of guy, and curiosity sometimes does kill the cat. But that's why, baby, we got 9 lives, and I'm pretty sure the voice of reason we got close to 20 lives, because we just continue to make it happen. I love it. Let's take another phone call in here, shall we? Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is John from Wichita.
John, how are you, my friend?
I just got a quick drive-by on that toy going off in the middle of the night.
Yes.
You're aware that Art Bell passed away recently.
That's what Rick Everett, our news guy, said a while ago, is that maybe it's Art Bell coming back, because I was a big fan of him.
So I don't know if it's saying anything like Area 51 or ETs or Linda Moulton Howe or anything else, but this is something maybe you should look into.
Well, and here's the thing. I haven't said the story because I'm going to sound like a nut, and I don't want to sound like the nut, but just for a quick summary, about 6 years ago, right before my wife and I got married, we were about ready to move into this apartment. I was living there. She was about ready to move in with me, and some really weird, scary, creepy things started happening, which I've always wanted kind of the paranormal experience, and I've gone on ghost hunts and I've done these things just to try and experience it. But these really, and it got more violent to the point to where, we were seeing scratches and doors slamming and all these really crazy things. And it ended up taking a priest to come in and do this 45-minute thing in Latin and spreading the holy water everywhere. He freaking drenched our bedding and everything in the entire room, in the apartment. And it stopped, but it took a good 3 months. And it was one of those where I would have an eye cracked open all night long for 3 months before we actually got this thing solved. And I was afraid that this kind of thing was starting to happen again, because it happened since then. But it was very concerning to me. I don't know. So I guess, I don't know. I know I'm rambling on there. I don't want it to happen again, I guess.
Well, it's too bad Art is off the air, because you would have been a prime candidate for him 6 years ago.
Would have been a prime candidate for that one. I know there's a TV show on Netflix called, Paranormal Survivors, with, like you see the movies Paranormal Activity, which is what we were living through for a while, and it was really crazy. But maybe we should submit our story onto that one, because I think it'd be a really good episode for that show.
You have a good day and a good week.
Hey, I appreciate it, John. Take care. Thank you much. I know I sound like a nut. Conservative talk show. We live in the realism world. We don't have the tinfoil hat kind of thing. But hey, you know what? I know what I saw. Don't make fun of me. I don't really care. 316-721-8255. Let's sneak in one more phone call here, shall we? We've gone from Voice of Reason to Coast AM on this. Let's go to the phones. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
This is Helen again.
Oh, what's going on, Helen? We got about 45 seconds. Go for it.
Okay, well, go to St. Luke chapter 10, verses 17 through 19. The Lord God, true Christians, he gives true Christians the power over all evil spirits, Satan, and everything in between. So if you have a fear of anything, or if anything's bothering you, just rebuke it in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ and his word. And maybe you need to anoint your house, like the children of Israel anointed their doorposts, their house, with the blood of the Lamb. Well, Christ is our anointing. Christ means anointing. So with the oil of our people, the olive oil.
I have wanted to do that. We haven't done that. We do have a lot of the from before. We had the crucifixes that were blessed from the priest before, and we had those hanging up in the house and sort of thing. But we do need to anoint the house. I do want to do that. Helen, I appreciate it. We got to take a break. Again, if you don't believe in this stuff, it's entertaining radio. It's interesting to listen to. One of these days I may have to go into the little more details of the story. I have started writing it down, because I think it would be a fascinating episode for a paranormal show or something. But nonetheless, got to take a break. Wrapping up the show today. This is the Voice of Reason.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker KQAM.
There it is. That's the end of the show. I know I sounded like a nut on that one, but we had a little fun, didn't we? Because that's just the way we roll. Tomorrow is Wednesday. I cannot believe we're already almost halfway through the week. We'll have some great guests for you tomorrow. Lots more discussion. A lot of stuff we didn't even get to today. So we'll do it tomorrow, because that's the way we roll. We advance conservatism on a daily basis. This is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason, baby. This is the Voice of Reason. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.